So the question for today is, why is Pam Bondi protecting Donald Trump? By the definition of her job, she should be the one who is investigating alleged crime, right? Yet she is using her position to be the protector of Donald Trump. Regardless of how you feel about Trump, whether you're right, left, whatever, the office of Attorney General is not there to protect the president. The office of Attorney General is there to prosecute federal crimes. So why is she so gung-ho on protecting the president? I mean, I guess if you're on the left, you kind of have an idea of why she's doing that. If you're on the right, I'd like to hear or see an answer as to why is she doing that. What's interesting is I want to know why she keeps pulling off files of the DOJ website, the Epstein Library, that implicate Donald Trump in various illegal activities with minors. If we're to treat everybody who's on the Epstein list equally and investigate him equally, then he should also be investigated. She hasn't released all the files. She's pulled quite a few files back, and I managed to download 5 or 6 files, actually 5 files that they pulled off already of the website, and I made a video. It's on my channel. If you care to subscribe or look on my channel, there is only one single video that I made other than shorts that I make or lives, and that one video is just basically a slow scroll through 5 of the most important files that I found on the DOJ website that implicate Donald Trump in cases where there's alleged rape of minors. And these are not just hearsay. There's several documents or actual legal documents filed in court, and another document is a summary of an FBI tip sheet that is created when someone calls the FBI and lists or provides some sort of a tip about national security or some sort of a threat, right? There's a specific list for that. And those are gone from the DOJ website. Now, I managed to download, like I said, last week and the week before, I downloaded 5 of them that specifically implicate, 4 of them that implicate Donald Trump in these crimes, and then one of them that confirms that Donald Trump met Melania with Epstein. So literally there's an email from a third party that is sent to Epstein. It's an email from 2016 where they're talking about Hillary losing the election, and what a shock and surprise it was that she lost the election. And then the person who sends the email to Epstein recalls how Trump was, when he met her on a plane there when they were flying together, he kept commenting of what kind of hot piece of ass she is. His future wife, right? The first lady now these days. So I'm curious as to why is the Department of Justice covering for the president? That's not their job. They're appointed by the president to be an independent agency, and they're supposed to investigate all crime. And if there is no credibility to anything, then they should investigate as soon as possible, provided details, talk to the witnesses, and if they find nothing, then we can dismiss all this and we can keep going with our life, and we can say maybe Donald Trump was not involved. But if there is crime, then maybe they should charge him with that. I know it's hard to charge a sitting president, but the reality is that the DOJ is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Definitely FBI is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's recent reports that even talk about what happened with Charlie Kirk, right? Regardless of how you feel about Charlie Kirk, there was a one of these tip sheets, and this is not part of the Epstein files, but there's a report that a tip was submitted to the FBI right after Charlie Kirk was shot, and somebody gave credible evidence about the circumstances of his death, and the FBI was supposed to investigate, flying a team from somewhere, but the plane was unavailable because it was being used for personal errands for either Cash Patel or somebody else. So, literally, this is the DOJ system, the federal government that we're working with right now, where they're not really concerned with what happens with criminal activity. They're more concerned about protecting our current president. But again, if you are curious, what are these 5 files that are no longer, or at least 4 of them are no longer available on DOJ website, subscribe or like or whatever, however, or just go to my channel. You don't have to subscribe or like, whatever. You go to my channel and go under videos. There's only one video, and it's a slow scroll video. It's about 20 minutes. It'll scroll right through the files, and you can just read for yourself all the court documents, the court documents that were filed by Katie Johnson, and that is her pseudonym for the case. It's not her real name because she was a minor. And there's actually 2 cases that she filed against Donald Trump, and there's tip sheets, and both of these lawsuits and the tip sheet, they corroborate the exact same circumstance, the exact same occurrence of crime, of alleged crime. So I don't know why FBI never investigated. That's another thing, is FBI never really investigated anything, right? They haven't really touched upon this, and they haven't done anything. So at what point in time the FBI didn't do their job? So I would say that maybe the Congress should look into the FBI and maybe redefine their role and their reporting structure, and make sure that they are focused in on solving crime at the federal level and not hiding crime on the federal level. But anyway, and I'm driving, you guys, so I will say hello to anybody who says hi. Thank you for tuning in. I really can't interact with this because I'm driving and I don't want to get into a car accident, but I like to do these talks. It helps me kind of talk, also get my frustration out with the system every single day. And thank you for tuning in if you're listening. So, and if you do like my content, please obviously subscribe and like stuff and comment. I like comments the best because I like to gauge what people think about this whole situation, regardless of what side you stand on. And if you want to call me a libtard, go for it. I don't care. That doesn't hurt my feelings. But I genuinely want to know. I'm curious about what people think about this whole situation. I mean, I know England is doing something, right? They are arresting a few people here and there. France is investigating a bunch of people. Poland has created a task force to look into a criminal gang that was operating between 2007 and 2000 and I believe 16 or something like that. And apparently there's some implications in them recruiting young girls, underage girls, with the promise of modeling careers for Epstein. So this conspiracy of Epstein is not strictly cut here at the United States or Virgin Islands. It is all over the world. Same thing with that Wexner guy, the creator of Victoria's Secret. I mean, there's reports in those FBI files, those tip sheets, that there were numerous parties that took place at his mansion, and this is where Trump, Epstein, Clinton, and other people were seen partying with Epstein, and this is where the alleged rapes of children happened. So, yeah. Hello. But anyway. Oh, and the other thing I want to mention is that, normally when I put out some kind of short videos, I get, hundreds of views, sometimes thousands of views. I put one out this morning, and it was basically a very short video that said, "Hey, if you want to see the files that disappeared of the website of the DOJ website, I have them, and I made them into a video, and I posted them on my website. And guess what? That video hasn't been blocked, but the YouTube algorithm is not sending any people to see it. Oh, the YouTube algorithm is not suggesting the video, the short that normally, hundreds and hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people join in and watch the short. Not showing the full video. It's not recommending the full video either to any file. So I think there is some, what's the word, fuckery going around with YouTube, where they are also protecting certain individuals. So maybe because they're scared of the lawsuit from Donald Trump. Although, why should Google be afraid of Donald Trump? But anyway, if you have any input, if you have any interesting, maybe you came up across some interesting files, maybe you want to share that with us. Like I said, I spend probably more time than I should on those damn files, but I feel it's something that I need to see it for myself. There's a bunch of people reporting on the on social media of this, and that, but I like to see it for myself. Sometimes doubting Thomas, right? If I don't touch it, or if I don't feel it, I don't believe it. But I do believe that this is real, and there's just too much evidence to counter the claim that Donald Trump is innocent. He is not. There's so many people in the files that are just falling from grace. They're quitting, they're resigning, they're hiding, they're inaccessible to the world, because some of them were even on the just mentioned in emails, and these people are now hiding, right? But Trump, of all people, he said, no, he knows nothing about Jeffrey Epstein. And then a report that from West Palm Police Department here, where it says that Trump called in 2006 or 2008 and made a report because, in his words, he said, this guy is bad. Everybody knows what he's doing. He's so bad. So that's why I had to call and report. So in other words, at the very least, if you don't believe anything else, Donald Trump knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, what he was doing to the kids. He knew exactly what he was doing. But I firmly believe that there's more than just what Jeffrey Epstein did. It's that Trump is definitely did something. That's my opinion, that Trump was actually engaging in all those activities with Epstein as well. Because why would so many witnesses come out and say, why would 30 plus women over the years would file, an adult grown woman would file cases against him or implicate him in either sexual assault or sexual harassment or something to that effect? He is a pig, right? So a pig is a pig. So sexual harassment is one thing, but it's too many sexual assault allegations against him, and then there's some threats of people, some people being threatened to be harmed or killed, or their families in these allegations. So there is just way too much circumstantial evidence, right? And this is something that happened before Donald Trump ever even thought about running for president, right? So this is not a smear campaign for his presidency. This is something that he's been accused of when he was just a real estate developer, when he was the infamous Playboy real estate developer who kept impregnating the next future wife while married to the current one at that point. So this is not like no one's going to derail his presidency because of what's happening now. The presidency in question is because he has been convicted felon. He lost a lawsuit for causing a rape, and also he is heavily involved in what we have at least released in our ability to see Epstein files, because that's only half the files. And Pam Bondi conveniently is claiming that everything else is duplicates. Well, if they're duplicates, post the duplicates. Because believe it or not, if you go through the files, there are many duplicates that have been posted. So there's probably instances where you see 3 or 4 in files that are identical. There's no difference between it. They just, in reality, there's probably maybe there could be total of maybe 2 million files, but there's so many duplicates of the file that it almost creates, almost like to, she did this to obfuscate, meaning to make things a little bit more difficult and more challenging than it should be, right? It shouldn't be this difficult to access a database, type in whatever you want to type in and search. And the other interesting thing, when you look at the database, right, you can't just search Trump and then, let's say, misconduct, or Trump and rape allegations. You can only search one word at a time. If you search more than one word at a time, the algorithm, the search box, for some reason, it will not allow you to search more than one word at a time. If you search 2 words at a time, it will always give you almost always gives you a 0, unless you type in, let's say, Donald Trump, and that happens to be something in a sentence where his first and last name is listed completely, like next to each other. It will give you instances of those words as long as they're next to each other. But if, for example, the word Donald and Trump would be separated by another word, you would never see that in results. So the database was put together purposely to be extremely difficult to be accessed. There is a separate data of images and video, and they only released about 300 gigabytes. I think it was 300 gigabytes out of 2 terabytes of that data. And most of the images that they released are basically thumbnails. They're not even images, they're thumbnails. They're tiny thumbnails. They're redacted with, boxes over people's faces, black boxes covering things. So they're not accessible, right? And they're supposed to only cover the names of the victims, all the people who are politicians, or even those who are innocent and they have nothing to do except that maybe they're mentioned in the file. Those people are supposed to be still in the file, so we can see exactly who's dealing with what. And I would like everyone to be given opportunity to clear themselves of whatever public opinion or whatever charges may be brought upon. But you can't do that, right? The longer you hide somebody's name and then it comes out that you were hiding it, the more suspicious that looks. And then in my mind, if the name of Donald Trump, or I don't know, let's just say Prince Andrew, was hidden on purpose for so long, and then only after asking they finally release those things, that makes them look more. Public opinion says that they're more guilty. And why would you do that? I mean, I have a few ideas, but yeah. Anyway, there's only one person listening to me, but thank you for listening. But I wish I could have some answers here. Why is Bondi protecting Trump? Does anyone care to jump in and answer the question? What do you think, at least? I mean, if he was innocent, then we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be sitting here and reading this, discussing this. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he is innocent. It looks like he's here. That's why the whole world is focusing on trying to figure out what he's doing. Like I said, the whole world, meaning that many countries have opened up investigations into the misconduct of Epstein and any other individuals. A lot of them are interested in to see how many people from their own countries have been involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm sure that this probably came across already, but Jeffrey also is, instead, in addition to his pedophilia ring and his financial schemes that he was running, he was also running an art fraud ring as well, to the tune of several billions of dollars. There's a search up a video of a lady who's an art dealer or art expert, and she actually, her main to look at the list of all the details that have been collected from the St. James Island or from his other home, and they were cataloged, and she found two paintings. um, Not Van Gogh. Who was it? Gauguin, and it wasn't Gauguin. I can't remember whose, but two paintings that were reported stolen at some point, and these paintings somehow showed up in Jeffrey Epstein's collection. And not only that, so she went through the whole catalog of all these famous artworks that were probably appraised to the tune of a few $1 billion. She looked at appraisals. There was two separate appraisals done for every piece of art, because the rich that can afford the very expensive art, they can use that art as a collateral for a loan, right? So if you have to, the rest of us, we have to put up our house or car or something. We have to put up something as a collateral, right? If you own, let's say, a Van Gogh or Picasso, right, and it's valued at $1 million, you can go to a bank and you can say, hey, Deutsche Bank, as in this case, can I get a loan worth of $1 million, and my collateral is this piece of artwork that I currently own. It is now at the gallery or museum in this place, but if I default on loan, that artwork belongs to you. You can take it and you can do whatever you want with it. And banks will say sure, because they understand the value of art. And then you get a loan for $1 million. You do whatever you need to do with it. You hopefully pay off your loan. I don't know how that works in the rich world. And you never really had to put up any monthly fee, right, for you renting art to the museum. And once it goes in the museum, it gets more exposure. So that naturally appreciates in value over time, right? Because the more exposure this piece of art has, the more it grows in value. That's what it is. So then you reappraise that piece of painting or a sculpture or whatever. You reappraise that a couple years down the road after it's been hanging at Metropolitan Museum of Art, and now it's worth $2 million. So now, even if you default on that loan, right, you're well, hopefully you don't default on, but now your piece of art is worth $2 million. So now you can go to the bank and say, hey, listen, can I get another $1 million? Because now the painting now is worth $2 million. Now, you also have to report on taxes, right, that you own this painting and that you're taking out loans, this and that. So interestingly enough, Jeffrey Epstein had all these pieces of art appraised by two different houses, right? Two appraisers. One appraised it really, really high, and the other one appraised it really, really low. Take a guess why that was, right? Take a guess. And if you don't want to take a guess, I'll tell you. The appraisal that was really, really high was the appraisal that was given to the bank. And the bank said, all right, this thing is worth $5 million. Here's $5 million credit, right? Line of credit or loan or whatever. And then the second appraisal that came at $1 million, that appraisal was taken to the tax office when you filed your taxes, or when you filed taxes. That was included in the appraisal, and you were only responsible for taxes on the value of $1 million, right? When you sold that painting, right? You sell that painting, it's only worth $1 million. That's the appraised value. It doesn't matter for what you sold it for, but the appraised value was $1 million. You reported on taxes, and you pay less taxes. So literally, you can cut your taxes in 1/5 by having somebody appraise high and low. Do you know who else who learned that strategy from Jeffrey Epstein and used it to appraise their Mar-a-Lago at $1 billion or whatever it was, and for the purposes of acquiring more real estate, and then undervaluing it for $1 million or $20 million, whatever it was, to pay taxes on it? Yes, the same guy who appears next to Jeffrey Epstein in the Trumpstein files, Donald J. Trump. So at least he learned that lesson from him, because I don't think Trump is smart enough to figure that out on his own, right? Trump is known for having a bunch of lawyers, bunch of accountants working for him, but he probably picked that up from Jeffrey Epstein. That's probably where he picked up the whole strategy on doing dual appraisals. And that's exactly what he was convicted of. 34 felonies for doing exactly that. Um, last year, or a year before that, I should say. Criminal. Criminal enterprise. But anyway, I guess no engagement from community, no answers. Why is Bondi protecting Trump? Does anybody know? I'd like to know. Is it possible that Bondi was a prosecutor here in Florida, not directly connected to Epstein, but Acosta was the one who was the prosecutor for Florida. And there's another interesting one. Acosta gave Epstein a really, really sweetheart deal, a protection from prosecution, which it's okay if you do that, but you have to actually legally, he would have to also give that information to the victims, and he never did. So there's an investigation into his conduct as a Attorney General for the state of Florida. So also, interesting enough, during the prosecution cases, right? We're talking about 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls that were raped by Epstein. When he was presenting the evidence against Epstein, because he had to charge him, he presented the evidence in a form that these girls were being prostituted rather than being raped, right? And we're talking about 2008, 2007, 2008, right? That's when the prosecution was going on. Even back then, there were specific guidelines in the federal law about rape and how that should be handled. Yet, for some odd reason, Acosta thought that if he would present this as a case of young prostitution, and that the jury might not find Epstein guilty because they would think that these 11-year-old prostitutes were somehow doing that for money rather than they were being coerced into rape. So Acosta is probably another one of those guys that should be thoroughly investigated. He should be charged with a crime because he literally let a pedophile go. That's what he did. He let a pedophile go. So, then not until 2019, when he was literally charged with federal crimes, that's when he and supposedly killed or supposedly committed suicide, although sources vary. And the most interesting part about there's a conspiracy theory that goes around that Epstein's alive and he's in Israel right now, right? And you may have seen this story on social media. And it has to do with Roblox. I think it's Roblox or Fortnite. Fortnite, I think. Is that Jeffrey Epstein had a Fortnite account. And in Fortnite you can purchase, apparently, I don't play these games, so my son does, but you can apparently purchase certain currency, using real currency, right? The Fortnite currency to buy items in the game, whatever. And that account has been inactive for a very long time, since he died. And just recently, someone with his tag name, right, with his name on the account, just purchased some of the currency in Fortnite, right? And then Fortnite came out and said, nope, that's probably a user that changed his name to the same name that he used to have, which was something like Little Saint James 1 or something like that. And then Fortnite user said, nope, that's not true, Fortnite, because in order for you to change, even you can change your name, your username, or your tag, or whatever it is, but if you look at the history of your usernames, there should be a history of usernames of previous ones, so you could see that. And surprisingly, with this one, there was no history, there was no change. That was one name that stayed the same since Jeffrey Epstein created that account, and then it stayed the same name until someone was charging a credit card to purchase some of the currency in Fortnite. So, and there's been several videos of someone who looks like Epstein walking through Israel with high security around them. So there's another instance of that. So I'm not convinced 100% that Jeffrey Epstein is dead. I'm not convinced that even that he died by suicide, because obviously the first thing that happened was what? Missing footage, right? Missing data from the video. And they said, well, it happened around that time where the video resets and blah, blah, blah. And that's not true. And that wasn't true. That was disproven. And then medical examiner, there was a medical examiner that looked over his files, and they said that there's a lot of inconsistencies that are happening in the files. So, if anything, I think that Jeffrey Epstein's still alive. He's probably hiding in Israel. Well, kind of in plain sight, because they're not going to charge him anything. He was working for the Israeli intelligence, after all. And the other thing I do believe is that Donald Trump is in the files for a reason, because I believe he's guilty. I believe he's guilty of everything that all these people have accused him of. So, and that's where I'm going to finish today, because, yeah. But anyhow, hello. I stopped so I can actually look at the screen, look at comments, and I have comments saying hello. Hello, Charlotte. Hello, Jacob. And hello, Dennis. So, I don't know who else is out here. But thank you for tuning in to my little rant. And again, if you want to see the Epstein files that have been removed by Bondi, they are on my channel here. There's one video. Everything else is short, so go under the videos and look at the Epstein files that have been removed by Bondi. Those are the files that explicitly implicate Donald Trump in all the wrongdoing with kids. So again, subscribe if you want to see this content, because I'm not sure if we're going to see that on the DOJ website again, because they removed it. Not unless what the Democrats are proposing is that the special master is appointed to the investigation, and an independent person that can go through the files and pull them out again, and make light of them. And I'm hoping that's going to happen, because currently Bondi is not doing what she's supposed to be doing. So, but anyway, thank you for tuning in. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.